Hello, and welcome to the Wild Blue Podcast, perspectives on aviation lives, lifestyles, and business.
Todd and I enjoy doing these podcasts together, especially when we can share some of our experiences, some of our experience, and just some of our knowledge and love of aviation with each of you. We have a good time bantering back and forth and having a laugh or two. We also have a lot of fun interviewing others, and that's where the tagline of the podcast comes in, life or aviation lives, lifestyles, and business. Because we learn so much from the folks that we interact with on a daily basis. I think that's one of the most fun and enlightening things to me about this business is the people that we run into. Some often just by happenstance because they've either hired us or we've come to know them through different other contacts. And we learn a lot about life. We learn a lot about business. We learn a lot about just perspectives, especially as it relates to aviation. And so this week, we have interviewed Richard Davidson. Now, Richard is a customer of ours. We sold a Saratoga of his. We helped him acquire a Piper Matrix. But what's interesting about Richard, and it's kind of one of those things that we have tried to beat the drum on somewhat unsuccessfully, frankly, is that Richard, I think he gets it in terms of how to properly approach airplane ownership. Richard not only has the means to own an airplane, but he has the mindset to own an airplane. And I hope that you pick up on that in this episode because we see a lot of folks, and especially, honestly, it's a lot of them in that PA-46 group that are more inclined to go out and use that airplane in spite of the fact that it might require additional training. And Richard really has a good perspective on safety for his family regarding training or how training and how maintenance interact with those things. So I hope you pick up on that, and I hope that if you are one of those people that is inclined to get the most airplane you can just because you can afford it, that you also take into consideration the training needs and just the responsibility that comes along with stewarding an airplane during your ownership tenure. So anyway, here's my interview, Todd and I's interview with Richard Davidson.
Hi, this is Chris Kirk with Todd Mitten here for the Wild Blue Podcast, where we talk about aviation lives, lifestyles, and business. And today we are honored to have Richard Davidson. Richard is not only a former customer, but he is an airplane owner, a business owner with us. And Richard lives down in Southwest Missouri. So Richard, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, great to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
So give us a little bit of background on who Richard Davidson is.
Well, sure. Born in Southwest Missouri, went to college down here in Southwest Missouri. And my uncle started flying or got his pilot's license when I was still in high school. So when I was in college, I went out to the local FBO and started taking lessons. And in addition to taking lessons, I got hired on fueling airplanes and started working for the regional airline down in Joplin in college. And had my private license since '89. Got my instrument rating about 20 years later, and have owned 4 airplanes, fly for my business today, but always loved aviation. I wanted to be a pilot. My dad had different plans for me for college. He refused to pay to send me to flight school, so he made me go get my business degree, and then life got busy. You get married, you have kids, and here I am 30 years later envying you guys who fly the big things, and I'm just sitting here flying a Malibu around every so often.
Just a Malibu, just a Malibu. So you've had, I didn't realize you'd had 4 airplanes. I knew about the Saratoga, of course, knew about the Matrix, but what else have you had?
Yeah, so I started my business in '97 and decided, it'd be nice to have an airplane to fly around. So I went and bought, I think in 2000 or 2001, it was before 9/11, I bought a Cessna 172 SP. And I had messed around trying to do instrument training at the local FBO, and you go out there once or twice a month and you forget half the things. So when I got the 172, I went down to American Flyers in Addison and stayed there for 7 straight days and did nothing but instrument training and finished my check ride and got it done. And had the 172 for a while, moved up to an F-33 Bonanza. And that airplane, I put a new engine in it while I owned it and moved up to the IO 550, which made that bird a pretty good machine. And then as the family grew, I needed more seats. I moved up to the Saratoga minivan to be able to haul all the girls. And then as they got bigger, I decided I'm going to put my comfort ahead of theirs and moved up to the Malibu that I got from you all last year.
I want to back up for a second because I thought it was interesting, Richard. You got your instrument rating on one of those courses where you knock it out real quick. What would you consider the pluses and minuses of that to our listeners? Maybe we have a listener who's considering that kind of a course. They're pretty popular. What'd you find out about it? What do you think?
Well, in my situation, by then I owned my business and I found it hard to find time to go fly for an hour or two, and it was going to stretch on for a while. So I made the decision to just take a week or two off from school. I called around, or from work, called around to several different places, and American Flyers seemed to fit what I needed. They were a close flight down to the Dallas metro area in the 172. Went down and met with an instructor. We seemed to hit it off, so I scheduled it, and I had my written done before I went in, and it took me about 7 days. And I was pretty confident. I had by then probably 700-800 hours under my belt, so it wasn't like I was a newbie coming out of a private ticket. But it just fit my schedule well. It forced me to go do it. It forced me to get it done, and it minimized the time it took to do that.
Did you do that in your airplane, or was it one of theirs?
Yeah, I did it in the 172 SP.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's back up again a little bit too. So you decided it was appropriate for your business. Would you mind sharing just a little bit what your business is, and then how that helped? Having an airplane helped you?
Sure, absolutely. So my business, been in manufacturing all my life in one sense or another, or operations. But my business today, we make 3 primary things. We make school furniture that we sell to schools all across the United States, and we sell through dealer networks. We also make parts for Lazy Boy, and we make aquarium stands you put your fish tank on. We sell those to Walmart, Petco, PetSmart. We've been doing that since 2000 or so. So the 172, I flew it out more than once out to Phoenix to see the folks at PetSmart. Also had family in Dallas, so it made the commute down there a little easier. But today, our dealer network being all across the country, I'll fly and see dealers. I was up at a customer yesterday in Jefferson City. Was in Dallas a few weeks ago. So it makes it convenient for me, because by the time I go get to an airport an hour before a flight, get on the flight, make a connection, get somewhere, I can't do that in a day. But having the Malibu, I can leave my house at 7 or 8 in the morning, go see a customer, be back in my bed that evening. And I just like that a lot more. For one, it's easier on me, but 2, it's flexible for the customer. I can stay as long as I need to go with him. I don't need to be on a schedule, and it's really worked out well. And recently, we've had another business venture come up that we're looking at in Alabama, and I've been flying down to Alabama every Friday, coming back every Sunday for the last 8 or 9 weeks, and doing that I did it once on Delta, did it once on American, but 2 hours and 45 minutes in the Malibu is a lot more convenient.
Absolutely. Of course, when we came to see your Saratoga, it was a hot day, as it often is, and we have a policy here at Wild Blue that Chris stays out in sweats, and I go in the air-conditioned comfort and take pictures of logbooks. It's just,
and that's what you did, by the way.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Well, then I get the nap on the way home, though. He flies, I get the nap on the way home.
Well, I mentioned that, though, to say that I had the opportunity to see inside your business and the work that was going on. It was fascinating. I mean, a lot of skilled craftsmen working in your business, and it was a going operation. And I know you were talking about just having to keep up was a struggle. So I'm sure the airplane helps you in that regard, because you spend less time traveling and more time working in your shop. But your business, I know it's varied, but it's really going in all directions. I mean, it's really a going entity right now, isn't it? You guys are busy.
Yeah, we're busy. COVID impacted schools, as you can imagine. Last year, some schools didn't open. Schools waited to the last minute to decide if they were going to open. And the Delta variant coming out now has kind of put things in question again, whether virtual learning is going to apply in 2021, 2022. But we're still growing. Our sales are up significantly. We continue to invest in machinery, new equipment to increase capacity. So yeah, when you have a growing business and a busy schedule, I mean, the airplane fits well. And I'll give you more detail on that trip to Jeff City yesterday. We had a customer that was unhappy with something we'd shipped, and we needed to take care of it. So it would have been a 3.5, 4 hour drive up to stay there for an hour, 3 or 4 hour drive back, and would have been a full day. I left at 7:30, went to Jeff City Airport, jumped in the crew car, went and took care of business. I was back at the plant before lunch, and allowed me to have half a day here during our busy season that otherwise would have been tied up on the road with not quite as productive. So the airplane makes me more productive because I can be in the office more often.
That's really a illustrative story, honestly, of why these things make a difference. And that's appreciate you sharing that.
Sure.
In particular.
You know, what's fun or what's interesting about that is the flexibility that he gives you. Like just a quick story. I had a buddy down in Branson call me on day before yesterday, and he needed to go down to a funeral in Columbus, Mississippi, and it's a long drive. So I flew down to Branson yesterday. I picked him up. Took him down to Columbus, Mississippi. I sat there at the airport like a corporate pilot for 3 hours while he went to the funeral, you know, and I brought him back home. And those are things you just can't do. So I was wondering, have you, being the business owner, and you started this business, right?
Yeah, correct. Started in 97.
So do you have, I don't know if there's a number or a dollar value, or maybe it's just a percentage or something like that, but do you have a sense on, what aviation or what owning your own airplane has done to grow your business?
I've never looked at it that way, but several times a year I'll run numbers just to say if I were to flown this commercial, or if I would have had to do it a different way, that depending how you load in the fixed costs of annuals and insurance and all the cost for a trip, and you're looking at fuel and general maintenance, and airline prices today, planes are full, prices are pretty steep on a last minute ticket. I truly believe if I'm taking somebody with me, it's as economical as it can be flying commercial, and the intangibles of being able to be there on my schedule. I truly believe it's saving me money in the long run, but I've never tried to tie into say, is our business growing because of the airplane? I don't use the airplane as that tool. I use it more as a service tool to make sure I can be responsive to customers and be flexible to their needs and schedules.
So are employees going with you too?
Yeah, usually. Yeah. Like yesterday, we took one of our operations guys to see the defect that was in the field so he can learn and say, it's one thing to see parts on a table, but now to see the unit assembled in a school, now you understand why this little piece here is so important, or this tolerance is so important. So I try to take an employee or two with me everywhere I go so they can see and experience it and interact with the customers, because once that personal touch happens or that learning happens, it sticks with them forever.
Is it fair to say that that's kind of an intangible for them too, because you might be sending them out on the road and now they can be home for dinner with their families?
Sure, absolutely. We're going to make another trip to Jeff City, but we're going to be able to take all the parts up there in the airplane, get it kicked out in 2 or 3 hours versus having to go get a car or rent a truck, put them in a truck, driving to Jeff City, probably spend an overnight there with a hotel. I think it's beneficial all around.
I know Jeff City, they're good about letting you use a courtesy car. I've done that myself in Jefferson City. A friend of mine just got his license this past week. It's kind of an interesting story. And he and his wife, she's from over in Jeff City, and they go to they love the Central Dairy, is a famous ice cream place in Jefferson City. And his second flight as a private pilot was to take her from here in the Kansas City area over to Jeff City for ice cream.
Oh, really?
It went great. They borrowed the crew car from Jeff City Flying Service. So, there's a little different example. Not a guy that's going to use it for business because he's retired, but but he's still having fun flying airplanes. And so I actually have two questions. That one is I was fascinated when the fish tank tie-in. The fish tank holders is. I know you talked about that business really boomed at one point, and then it kind of leveled off to owning fish, I guess, was a little less popular. Walmart stopped selling or something. But first off, I think it's great, that this is these are manufactured in the United States. Hey, it's something these companies are selling that's not from China. But secondly, did you see an uptick, since you and I talked a lot about that business when I was down there in your factory? Have you seen an uptick in COVID since COVID of fish ownership at all, or is that changing anything?
Well, aquarium stands were trending down, but with COVID and people being stuck in their homes, we couldn't keep up last summer. It was unexpected demand, and that demand continues today, although it's starting to soften a bit. But we saw a resurgence in anything that we sold furniture-wise online through Walmart.com, Petco.com, PetSmart, or even Amazon. COVID really drove some of that business for people being at home and needing something to do that was a little different than what they did pre-COVID.
Yeah, I was curious about that. And then as I was talking about the friend of mine that flew his wife over to Jeff City, I was also thinking about, and you also, I think, use your airplane occasionally to fly. Don't you fly the Panhandle of Florida some? Are you still doing that, or am I?
Sure. So we, as we grow our network, we are finding states where they spend a lot of money on schools, and Florida is a big spender on education. So we're trying to develop a network down there because I have a house down there that we built a couple of years ago. I make a point to call on the Florida Panhandle myself. So we'll go down for a few days, go visit some superintendents, talk about things, and again, 3 hours and 40 minutes we can be in the Panhandle and take care of business and be back.
And the beauty of it is you're doing business, but you get to take advantage of the airplane already being down there for family reasons. So that's
yeah. Or it's nice. I have somewhere to stay. Even if I don't take the family, I got somewhere to stay down there. I've got a car down there, and if I take the family, they ride along and can do things while I'm working and enjoy a little bit of the Florida sunshine.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
So if impart some of your words of wisdom, would you, on people who are that own a business, they might be thinking about jumping into getting something that they can use. What's interesting with you, Richard, we got a lot of customers who are kind of in the same boat that you are. They're in a semi remote area, and by that I mean it takes them a while to get, maybe an hour to drive to an airport that's served by the airlines, and then you're flying the regionals, and then you got to make a connection somewhere, and then you got all that. So it's just like you can't get anywhere and back in the same day. So we got a lot of folks that I think that's more the norm in our world than the people who live in the big cities.
Yeah.
But what kind of words of wisdom you got for somebody that's thinking about jumping on that train and seeing what they can do for their business?
Well, I read a lot of forums online and follow some different pages on Malibu's or Mooney's or whatever, just to see what people are saying. One thing I think that is important is Malibu's nice, it's fast, but if you don't have some hours in your book, you're going to have trouble getting insurance. And if you do get insurance, you're going to have to pay for it. So I've got around 2,000 hours now, but I started small and worked my way up. So I guess the advice would be, don't expect to get your private pilot's license. You're going to go out and buy a Malibu and start flying around for your business because, one, I'm not sure it's that safe. That airplane's pretty fast. You can get behind it pretty easily. But two, it's got to make financial sense. Unless you just got a lot of money, you don't care about burning. Start smaller, stay closer to home, get some hours in it, feel comfortable with it, see the utility of the aircraft, understand the cost of ownership. But for me, every transition has been a business decision and or a family decision, and I don't regret any of them. The Malibu to me is probably where I will stay. The only difference being I probably want pressurized, and it'd be nice to have kerosene burning up front instead of avgas. But the Malibu platform to me is, I think, where I'm going to finish my life. It's just a question of whether or not it's in this airplane. But don't get too aggressive. Don't try to move out there too fast. And you can spend a lot of money real quick if you don't know what you're doing. Be certain to go get a pre-buy from someone who specializes in your aircraft. So if you're going to go to Malibu, go to somebody like a Kevin Mead up in Olathe or one of the other shops that specialize in the PA-46. The return on that's going to be well worth your investment. And run some numbers and talk to some other people. Just don't go make a decision. Talk to other people that own the airframe you're looking at. Go fly on that airframe. Talk pros and cons, and make a wise and informed decision.
I think it is, to be clear to our listeners, Richard owns a Matrix, which is the unpressurized version of the PA-46. So in case the listeners were wondering, well, I thought a Malibu was pressurized. It's a Matrix that he owns, which is the same thing, just unpressurized.
I call it a Malibu only because ATC doesn't. Some of them never heard of Matrix before, so I've just gotten in the habit of calling it.
No, it's a Malibu. I mean, it's a Malibu through and through. It's just, you brought up a good point, and this is something that I honestly don't hear a lot from people. So a lot of business folks, you included, have the means, they have the wherewithal to go out and just jump right into something big, and it's not like necessarily buying a boat where you're still tooling around the lake or the shore, doing 15 knots. I mean, there's serious differences in these airplanes. It's good to hear somebody like you that says, you know what, let's take it a little slower. Let's work our way up, because just the last year they were pretty close together. Todd, I don't remember, but we had one of them I know about fairly well. The other I don't know so much about. But we had two Matrixes, or two Malibus. One that we sold and one that was just here that had issues because of people, I think, not giving them the respect that those airplanes needed. One of the guys we sold one to, super guy, he could afford getting into it. Within 2 weeks, he promptly collapsed the nose gear out at an Eagle, Colorado, and that's a real problem sometimes on those airplanes for somebody who lets the plane get away from them. The other one was a local guy, or not a local guy. It was a local incident. There was Todd and I were downstairs getting coffee, and the manager here at Atlantic says, "Hey, did you see the Malibu that ran off the runway out there?" And we look out the window, and then there's the guy, and the gals at the front desk were telling us, that thing looked like a clown car, because there were 6 people coming off that airplane, and they weren't small people. And I pulled them up. Of course, we ran up here. We go check out FlightAware to see where they came from. And you start doing the math, and you're like, oh my gosh, there's no way they were within the limits on that airplane. There's just no way. So I appreciate that coming from somebody like you, because that says a lot. That just because you can do it doesn't necessarily mean you should.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, your step-up airplane was a Piper Saratoga, and that is. I'd be interested in your thoughts. I know that for some reason, Saratoga owners in the room think they're the greatest thing since sliced bread. And so, what did you find utility-wise from your Saratoga? It was a Saratoga 2 HP.
Yeah, I love that aircraft. I got it because I needed more seats as the family grew. And now, looking back, I've owned a Cessna, I've owned a Beach product, and I've owned 2 Pipers. I'm very, very happy with the Piper platform. Parts are affordable, made in Florida. The Beach was nice. Don't get me wrong. That Bonanza was a hot rod, but it was expensive to work on a Beechcraft airplane. I never had a significant issue with the Saratoga. It was a solid platform. It got me everywhere I needed to go. I never found myself unable to get somewhere. I upgraded some avionics in it, but the nice thing about the Malibu is primarily the speed, but it also brought anti-ice into my life. I didn't have boots on the Saratoga. I was not turbocharged on the Saratoga, so it's allowed me to expand my operational frame in terms of got a little ice coming out of Missouri on a December morning. Saratoga couldn't go. Need to get up a little higher in the summer coming back from Georgia to get over those cumulus buildups in the afternoon. Saratoga wasn't going to get there very easily. And the comfort inside, albeit it's like being in a greenhouse when you're flying in the sun. The AC on that thing, I don't think any of them do that well. But absent being able to open a vent and get a little airflow going, the Malibu to me is a better platform. It's a lot more expensive platform, but the Saratoga never let me down. I really enjoyed a stable airplane. And I trained on Pipers 30 years ago, but it was a good, comfortable plane, a lot more shoulder room than the Beechcraft the Bonanza had. I got no complaints about it other than I just wanted something with anti-ice, and this Matrix came up with them, and that's why we jumped on it.
Have you always owned the planes yourself, or has there been a partner involved?
Never had a partner. Always owned them 100% myself or through the business.
Okay. What do you do for training?
With the Malibu, insurance requires me to go get training every year, and they require it be through a certified platform. So I use Dick Rochfort. He came down from his home in the Northeast to Joplin, did the 5 or 6 day course with me in July of last year, and then he's coming down in a couple of weeks to do my annual review. But I really like Dick. He's a PA 46 specialist. There's 3 or 4 of them around the country, but I enjoy him, and I'm flying 150, 200 hours a year right now. So for him, that means you're flying the aircraft enough where you're staying current, you're staying comfortable. I'm shooting instrument approaches fairly often. So the training is with Dick has been very good, and I look forward to seeing him again this month.
So we've seen a number of customers go from kind of like what you're doing again, but we've seen them go from either a Saratoga to a Matrix or a Mirage. But seen a fair number of them take that next step, and you kind of hinted at this a little bit ago that the Jet A burning, getting into a Meridian or something like that. You see yourself getting down that road at some point where you can take advantage of all that thing has to offer?
I do. The one thing that concerns me is more personal is, I'm in my 50s now. I'm not sure how long that class 3 medical is going to hold out, and someday you may have to go to a basic med, and that limits you to under the flight levels. So as long as health holds out, I think in 3 or 4 years there'll be kerosene burning versus avgas burning. Now, I say that. I was thinking about it in bed just a couple of nights ago. There's no easy way to get fuel in the Osho, at least kerosene, at 7, 8 o'clock at night. So pay at the pumps, avgas only. So there's some things I need to research a little bit more on that. But if I had a wish list, that turbine would definitely be on the list and something I'm going to look hard at in the next 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, for somebody who's looking at that jump, we had a customer down in South Texas earlier this year, and we sold him a Saratoga a number of years ago, and he was wanting to go to something pressurized, calling his employees back and forth, and it really got down to the Mirage wasn't going to give him the range and the payload capability that he needed. He was still going to have to make a stop, and he wanted to try to avoid doing that, and so he got into a Meridian. And he's loving it. But like you say, those costs, they really start to escalate when you're doing stuff like that.
Yep.
Yeah, that's but it's so impressive the way you worked your way up, and you've just done it right. And I hope our listeners take, if nothing else out of this particular podcast, just take that stepping stone approach that Richard has taken, the building blocks and got experience, and then the training. You're going to using one of those guys that's insurance. Of course, he has to be insurance qualified, but it's just you're carrying your employees, sometimes your family in that airplane. You understand the responsibility that incurs. It's not just a matter of being able to afford one of these airplanes. It's a matter of being able to operate it correctly. And I applaud you for that, because you really are doing that.
And I'll comment to that too. When I went and got the annual done at Meade in January, Kevin went through the list, was very thorough. And I said, Kevin, I'm carrying my family in this plane. If there's anything on this list that you said needs to be done, we're going to do it. And I talked to so many pilots that say, I wouldn't want to waste the money on that, or I wouldn't want to waste the money on that. And, I value my life more than anything, but my daughter's right there next to me, and my wife. You can't skimp on the maintenance, and if you're going to own an airplane that costs you $400,000, $500,000, $600,000, and you're going to worry about a couple $1,000s here and there, you're owning the airplane for the wrong reason. So I've always been that way with every plane I've owned. If mechanic was erring on the side of caution for any reason. I said, absolutely, we're going to do this the right way and make sure it's buttoned up and good to go, because I got too many lives relying on it personally that I care so much about that we're not going to let a few $1,000s here or there put a question mark outside.
When you come up to OJC next January, you need to let us know in advance, and we'll come down, and maybe even Chris will buy coffee for.
Yeah.
No, we would love that. We actually, that'd be wonderful, Richard. If you'd let us know, we'd love to say hi in person again.
And let me add one more thing on the stepping stones. You learn so much at each airplane. So I don't recall any major issues in the Cessna, but I do remember a couple of vacuum pump failures, and an alternator failure I had. Stepped up to the Bonanza. I had a runaway elevator trim on a flight back from Tulsa. Luckily in VMC, I had a radio short out in the Saratoga, a new Garmin transponder short out, filled the cockpit with smoke at 8,000 feet. So those types of things, had a Malibu been my first plane and I experienced those types of issues in there, I'm not sure what would have happened. But you also learn not just the flying skills and to be more efficient and have control of the airplane, not let the airplane get ahead of you. But you start asking questions in training. As I said to Dick, hey, I had a transponder short out in that beach or the Saratoga. I was able to open the vents and clear the smoke. What do you do in a Malibu? So it prompts you to be thinking about more things too as you're flying. And I think it's important too. I did this with Kevin. I stayed with them for the annual for a couple of days because I wanted to see the systems. I wanted to see what was behind those cowlings and what's behind those panels to understand as I'm flying. If I'm trimming and all of a sudden I start feeling a little bump in the trim, I know how that rigging's done. I'm going to guess I got a wire that's gone over itself or something on the elevator trim. But just to know that aircraft inside and out, to not just jump into it and start flying.
I think this is some insight into why Richard's business is successful, because he's looking at details. This is, I'm sure you operate like this within your manufacturing business too. And that's one way to be successful for sure, is pay attention to details. So, good on you.
Yeah, it's good to hear, Richard. It really is, because Todd will attest to this, and I think for both of us, nothing is less impressive to me than the airplane owner who brags about their $1,500 annual. And you're operating airplanes, and we've heard it from guys that have PA-46. Oh yeah, that last annual is only $2,500. I'm like, there's no way you're doing a full annual at $2,500. I mean, I even tell people to buy a Saratoga or an A36. Look, you need to really plan on spending probably $6,000 to $8,000 a year if you're going to take care of the things that need to be taken care of. Yeah. So it's you're unfortunately kind of a needle in the haystack or a diamond in the rough, I guess, a better way to put it, because there's a lot of airplane owners that don't necessarily look at it that way, and in today's market, they can get into an airplane like a PA-46, and not necessarily like yours, but you go back to an older one, they can get into it for fairly reasonable money. But I was just telling a guy this the other day, I said, yeah, you can get into it for $250,000. It was a fairly old one. I said, but you got to remember, you're maintaining $1 million airplane, and that's the way you got to look at it. So.
Yeah. If you can't afford the annual, don't buy the airplane, because don't go spend $500,000-$600,000 in an airplane and worry about whether you're going to get a $1,500 annual. So you just got the wrong priorities there.
Well, listen, this has been very worthwhile. So what I'd like to wrap up is let you have the final words and say, anything that, what's next for you, what's next for your business, and, any other words of wisdom you can impart before we close out?
Well, sure. So, the business is still growing. I'm still young enough. I'm going to enjoy this ride for a while. My oldest daughter's in college. I'll be coming up to Mizzou this Saturday and helping her move into her sorority house for her sophomore year. But I enjoyed the aircraft. I enjoyed the transaction with Wild Blue. It was a smooth and easy purchase. I appreciated the information you all shared, how much you cared and came down selling the Saratoga for me. You made the purchase and sell experience very, 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 very good. And I look forward to when the opportunity arises again, using your group for that next purchase, because you made it so easy and made it like I would do it if I were in the aircraft selling business. So I appreciate all you do. Flying's a lot of fun for people that are getting into it. Don't let your egos and your wallet get you ahead of where your capabilities are. And but enjoy it. It's so much fun, and utilizing aviation, utilizing aircraft has benefited me. And I got some great stories. I'd love to talk about it anytime somebody wants to call or drop me a Facebook message if they have questions about a move they're thinking from a Saratoga or a Malibu. I'll be glad to give my insights. But I enjoyed it. I love it. As long as my health keeps up, I'm going to be flying every week, every month, and I appreciate your help in putting me in this Malibu.
Oh yeah. Hey, thank you. And that kind of comes, I'm going to cue Todd for the little voiceover, and that was an unpaid solicitation, folks. So that was yeah. Thank you. That was nice. That's not what I was looking for, but thank you.
We make friends with a lot of our customers. So honestly, it's a great.
Well, I called you a few weeks ago and I said, hey, I was up in the air the other day and I heard that tone come over when an MD-80-88 was talking. What causes that harmonic?
That 400 hertz tone.
Yeah. But, we became friends in this transaction. I thought, I'm going to call Chris and just ask that. It's always made me curious, and it's just kind of a relationship. You called me a few times. I just had fun with you all. I respect you all, and really enjoyed it. And I think we made lifelong friends out of this transaction.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. That's what aviation's great. We like all that, but I'll tell you the thrill I get out of it is just meeting people and learning about their businesses and and seeing how they operate. There's just so much to learn out there. I think it's one of those things where I wish that I had the curiosity to learn when I was 20 that I have now, because maybe as you start to see the end approaching, you're like, man, I just want to suck up all this stuff and learn from all these people. And I'm starting to feel like I don't have time to do it, but oh well.
We're still doing a lot though.
But well, listen, thank you. And folks, hope you enjoyed this podcast. We'll close out here. And I guess, Richard, if you want, do you want to, for anybody that might be in the market for the products that you manufacture, do you want to give some contact information for your business here, maybe a website?
Sure. Our website is marcogroupinc.com. That's Marco, M-A-R-C-O, Group, G-R-O-U-P, put an I-N-C on the end, marcogroupinc.com. You can see everything we make, a contact page there. Drop us a message if we can help you.
All right, super. Richard, thank you again.
I appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, Richard.
Take care.
Take care.
Thanks for listening to the Wild Blue Podcast. Find us online at flywildblue.com. And don't forget to subscribe and share.